Pop quiz. What do the badges Power Bounce, Power Rush, and Power Plus P have in common? They're all banned from being used in this video. And not just badges, but also items like boost sheets, Power Punch, and Shooting Stars, as well as moves like Multi-Bunk, Fiery Jinx, Bombast, basically all of your best tools in battle. This challenge is about using only items, badges, and actions with a lowercase p because of the gimmick surrounding Duplic's real name. Right, it's about as ridiculous as it sounds. It basically means we'll have no use for our hammer in almost every battle in favor of just jumping at enemies. We beat Lord Crumb, who then sees us run off with our new friend without benefits, Goombella, and none of her moves have a P, so she's completely unusable. Shame, because I really like her and her ponytail, which totally does follow the rules. But alas. Soon after that scrap, there are these Goombas who seem to think we're just infringing on their turf, and so they attack us. We're able to jump on the Goomba and Paragoomba fine, but the spiky Goomba can't be harmed as we lack a hammer to fight with. Most unfortunate, as we don't have any other means of damaging. Oh yeah, we can't standard guard either because there's no P in it, but we can super guard because there is a P in it. This is going to be so confusing. Well, those little shrimps got served, and we were able to procure our plain curse before proceeding to the 1,000-year door. Unfortunately, Sweet Treat as well as most special moves we gain later like a P, so this feature of the game is just about useless to us. We also just have no use for the badge Frankly gives us since Power Smash has no lowercase p in its name. We can still sell it though in favor of Power Jump, which is nice since that badge does carry with it a P. And with it, we can play up the blooper. I probably should have healed before this, but frankly, we didn't need to. I bought some Sleepy Sheep earlier, and this gave Goombella something to do as she otherwise would be stuck appealing the whole fight. Just so happens that Sleepy Sheep always works here, so one of these, alongside a few jumps and power jumps, made quick work of Squidward. So that takes care of the prologue. Now, with the inability to hammer and the lack of any real methods to heal, since mushrooms and horsetails lack the penis necessary to scarf them down, Mario really has only one way to heal himself outside of heart blocks and ends, being the badge Happy Heart. Why is this tutorial not progressing? And it's here I realize that I found the soft lock. A soft lock that only happened because this game has an unskippable tutorial, which was previously skippable for what I can only describe as for no good reason. I swear to God, but it goes against my faith to do so. So I just reset, unequip Happy Heart, and now that I've dodged the soft lock, I now realize this tutorial is also going to force me to use my hammer. Dang. Well, that's the first forced non-P move. Even if I had other badges, they can't be selected, so I guess sue me for clickbait. I literally can't get around this from what I can tell. Guess I have no choice now but to
drown yourself in the digital lake!
We are at least able to power jump the bald clef standing between us and Schwunk Fortress, and super guards work fine against the bristles. I would use the power blocks for foraging here, but the P and POW is in cap, so they're off limits. Time to think of it. There's nothing we can buy in the Petalburg shop at all that isn't already for purchase in Rogueport. Pretty rotten selection if you asked me. I went on to do the quiz and decided to limit myself to only options with a P. Most of the answers though did not have a lowercase p at all, and sure enough, I do end up passing by the 6th question. Schwunk Fortress has nothing of value either to equip or to fight with. It's really just fuzzies, which I take as an opportunity to practice my super guards, and Gold Fuzzy, which was a jump and 2 power jumps away from Purgatory. Guess that'll do for the first half of chapter 1, but we still have the actual castle in question, and the key to entering it is Koops, our second partner in the game. Now with Koops, he does have the distinction of having a lowercase p in his name, but he sadly lacks any moves with a P in them, so he's about as useless as they sadly come. Oh well. Speaking of useless, I'd recommend just selling any regular mushrooms you find. They're pretty much useless in this challenge. Time to pave the road towards Hooktoad Castle, where our upcoming obstacle, Red Bones, awaits us. Because the quintuple threat all-out defense, we're stuck having to power jump them all one by one. Okay, I guess that could happen too. This is actually pretty lucky, as Red Bones and its allies can rebuild teammates at will if they wish, so having them all wiped out by the stage is super appreciated. It just comes down to keeping up the assault now before our opening appears, then it's curtains for the Crimson Corpse. Nothing else is standing between us and Hooktail now, but I'm not really confident in Hooktail being too doable right now. So before I went to actually challenge her, I ended up grabbing whatever was available here and dipped out. My next destination was actually the Pit of 100 Trials. I came here to get a badge from level 10. Sleepy Stomp is one of the few badges who have a P in it, and I reason it could help here if my Sleepy Sheep failed to put Hooktail to sleep, since a few turns where the boss you sedate just can't attack would be really useful. Sadly, sleep status just ended up never triggering for this whole fight, and I ended up not even seeing the first 20 HP be eliminated before getting taken out by a backdrop that I missed the super guard for. The first death in this playthrough, though I highly doubt I could have much of anything better here. I do in hindsight wish that I went to buy more honey syrups than I figured would be necessary. It isn't like my partners can do anything but appeal otherwise, so to not have items they can use can set us back fairly far. Especially when I'm really only now getting the hang of the timings for some of Hooktail's moves, so survival is all but promised. I ended up realizing near the end of the fight though that I don't have enough FP to close the fight out, and the situation quickly turns perturbing. What? Perturbing? Yeah, it's a word. To be honest, you may hear more weird words I use solely because they have a P in them. Maybe you'll learn something new. Anyways, my anxiety quickly was pacified when a bucket conks Hooktail on her head, and allows me to deal just enough damage to pick her off. And yes, before you ask, I did seek dialogue options with a P when Hooktail was making offers. There were none. Much like no P's in Attack of XG, which, yes, I am disappointed by. But at least we get our first Crystal Star. And while the special move itself is absolutely nothing worthy of note, the resources available to us once we bring it back to the 1,000-year door positively are. For starters, Westside Rogueport is now open to us, as we can give Zesty a replacement contact lenses to move her out of the way. Money is no longer a concern, as we can just grind piñatas on the spicy matching game in the Piñata Parlor, and sell refund badges for 40 coins per copy, and the availability of super mushrooms is fantastic, as we finally have an item that will restore our HP. Charlatan is now available in Rogueport, and we can get the Jumpman badge from him. This will be equipped essentially for the whole game, since our hammer is unusable until we get it upgraded, and that won't be for a while from now. I'd also be remiss if I didn't mention that Zesty can cook items that don't have a P in them, and convert them into something actually usable like spicy soup if you cook fire flowers, which is awesome. I figured also, since it has no real impact in battle, I'd get Peekaboo. There's no P in it, but, you know, if you took the name of the badge and inverted it, yeah, I'd be convinced. Alternatively, you could just play this game in Dutch and bam, no rules are being violated now. The worst chapter in the game. Debatably. There are a few things to do. The most important right now is recruiting Madame Flurry so that we can infiltrate the Great Tree after the excess took over. To do as much, we'll need to rescue our necklace, which is in possession of the first boss of note here, the Shadow Sirens. Yes, Beldum, I know you're called the Three Shadows, but I don't care. Three Shadows is freaking boring. It's like calling Megamind's minion Chum. I'm dead-naming your group, deal with it. As pimped up as Mario is now, there was very little to fear here. A jump in addition to power jump on Beldum will knock her out before she can make any commands to her sisters, so they never get the chance to fight with their elemental magic. From there, it's just a matter of repeatedly jumping on the remaining two sirens before they succumb and kneel before my heel. Now that we have Flurry's necklace, we can return it to her and gain our third partner. And I'm happy to say now that after being forced to fight essentially with only Mario for all of the previous chapter, we actually have some help now. Despite neither of Flurry's starting moves being usable with no P to be seen, raking her up with Merlin will see her be bestowed a Lip Lock, and attack that hits for 4 damage while restoring Flurry's HP. It's actually fairly decent, and being a move that can harm enemies that are spiky on their tops, we were even able to challenge and chase Gus away with some good old Canker Cooties. You have no idea how much this will help us to progress now. Being able to attack twice in a single turn after so long of solo fighting. Seriously, as if playing through this game 7 times with each partner on their own didn't suck badly enough. The only real drawback is that if we lack FP, Flurry isn't able to do anything, so by whatever means necessary, we'll have to keep our FP up to be able to fight with her. This all being said, Magnus 1 grapple primarily was just jumping and lip locking to take it down. I didn't want to have to slow my assault down, so I used one of my gradual syrups here in order to add a constant stream of FP so that Flurry can attack as much as she wishes. It took a few turns to finish the Fiend off, but it was fairly easy. Unnecessary as it may be, I let my gut guide me, and it told me to return to the Pit of 100 Trials for the Zap Tap badge. I went and also rescued Pinty Sr. while I was at it in case I wanted to buy some gold bars. In hindsight, probably wasn't worth it because there's not really a lot of resources we can use. Doesn't help either that fighting in the pit and going beyond level 10 puts us at the mercy of Pokies, who we cannot attack directly at all. It's Super God City, baby! Speaking of city, Glitzville. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with the gimmick of this area, Chapter 3 has us endure battle after battle to become champions and win the Crystal Star. A lot of people love this chapter, but the novelty for me wore off back when I could skip it with a couple of glitches on GameCube. Man, those were the days. Still, I must say, it wasn't too bad to persevere through. The Goomba Bros always demand we appeal at least once, so after that, we have free reign to bruise them like bananas. The Caping Koopas just demanded no items be used, so jumping and lip lock worked just fine. The Poke triplets were annoying here for similar reasons to when we found them in the Pit of 100 Trials, but my Super Guards were pretty on point thanks to practice prior. Dead Bones were dead to rights, as the condition just wanted me to fight with Flurry at all. Spike Storm was just an utter slog, as after the Lakitu had fallen, this was a fight where there was just nothing I could do but Super Guard to do any damage at all. Flurry's lip lock, despite the position of the spikes, can't be used here, as these little gremlins are considered spiky both on their sides and their tops. So borrowing access to Spike Shield, we just ain't winning this fast. But it could be worse, at least we didn't get a condition that forced us to win in under 5 turns. God, why are my partners being so submissive and agreeable? At least act like you have your own opinions on what we should do here. Hand it over as just need to damage us thrice, which is essentially an excuse to just not press buttons during their turn. Mindboggler saying we can't swap partners is whatever, since Flurry's the only partner we can fight with right now. And Bomb Squad needs us to win in less than 6 turns, which, well, let's just say the enemy got the memo. Predictably, the Iron Adonis twins were not going to happen on the first go-round, but things changed not long after. When we got to the Armored Harriers, we were able to beat them in the rematch thanks to the Yoshi I fathered with Flurry being the mother. And now we're a family! As problematic as my rules tend to be for challenge videos, not so much here as Scrap, yes that name was inspired by Chunka Conroy, is introduced to us with the move Gulp, which does have a P in it. So we can not only freely use it, but it's the only move Scrap can fight with for the time being. Lucky us. The fights proceed to offer little challenge. The tiny Spinies went down to a single gulp and were able to avoid well under 20 points of damage. The only time I got a fight that conflicted with my rules was versus the 2 Bristles, and that's because I was commanded to use a special move when none of the 3 I have a P in them. But the rematch gave me no swap partners, which, cool. We also get the Super Hammer afterwards, meaning there's finally a hammer move we can fight with, even if at the cost of 2 FP. The Shell Shockers went down to a couple of jumps and a couple of gulps, which is perfect as I had to use at least 2 partner skills. And just to get the audience an encore, I had Scrap pull the same stun on the Iron Adonis twins when they came out to rematch us. The Fuzz took 2 turns of jumping and lip locking, so say sayonara. No magic MacGuffins can help us against the Magikoopa Masters, which is fine by me. They get stunned into soup. And speaking of soup, the big bad turtle himself arrives, and he's brute force like most fights we've had to do here. Flurry did help accelerate the process with her lip lock, and the whole thing was just kinda whatever. Against Crawdaddy is the first time I ever had to fight with my hammer. Convenient that I'm not allowed to jump here, so we rush him down and out. Hamma, Bama, and Flare say I can't use my hammer, which to me just sounds like Hamma copyright claimed it. That's fine, I have Jumpman patented and is significantly more popular anyway. Sure allowed me to stomp these 3 in the putty. Chomp Country got gulped, and the traumas they endured in Scrap's mouth led them to run into my arms where I subsequently zapped them. Shock therapy. Effective. Finally, the Koopinator is a fight where I could have used my Super Hammer, but because the damage is so much worse than letting Scrap do all the work, I just took a back seat and watched from behind. I think he really likes the taste of iron. Reminds him of blood. And that be all the fights prior to Rock Hawk. And like Bowser, just brute forced. I'd attack, Flurry would go after, and something interesting that's brought to my attention is just how much slower the prop drop is now. You can actually react to the hazards that fall, which make me think Super Guarding the whole thing can probably be done. Of course, Rock Hawk being on the ceiling following that attack means Mario can't hurt him. But we thankfully have Flurry to pick up the slack and suck him back down to Earth. A real Falcon x Falcon moment.
You're gonna get him out there, and he's gonna try and jump out of it, but then you're gonna fuck him in the air. Ooh.
It's an easy win from there, where Mario can strike him down. It was a fairly similar story with Magikoopa, and he's just not very scary. My damage is just really high despite the lack of power boosting badges. It's just a testament to the power of Jumpman. The badge, not the character. It didn't take long before Magikoopa conclusively came out of this fight as the Omega male we always do him to be. And I will always be the alpha and the champ. 3 crystal stars in hand gives us 4 special moves in total. And even though Power Lift has a P in it, it's not the kind of P we're looking for. Which is honestly a pity because Power Lift has got to be one of the absolute best moves in the game, with it being basically guaranteed to give +3 in one set and +4 in the other. Alas, we must press on while still being devoid of any star powers for options. I didn't even bother to mention Clockout because it just did not feel necessary to do. Proceeding to Twilight Town and Twilight Trail, the enemies we encounter present themselves as pretty powerful, but we never actually take any attacks from them since Super Guards tend to protect us fairly well. Eventually, we reach the creepy steeple which, it just occurred to me, has 2 lowercase p's in its name. That's just funny. Naturally, to even reach the monster we're tasked with taking out, we first must empower the specters inhabiting it by granting them their freedom. We then proceed to pound them into putty because I like to challenge as many bosses as I can. And Atomic Boo was, well, laughable. This fight could have easily proven bad for me, but the only attacks we saw thrown our way carried no real risk of devastating us. Just Boo Breath and that was it. A few spin jumps and lip locks make quick work of the Boo Loss's behemoth and we keep moving forward. And now it's time for Quintuple Question Mark. Can't use his real name yet, obviously. And well, this fight devolved into just bashing him with spin jump and lip lock once more. There's little else to really say when he's already well known in the Paper Mario community and even your own partners in game for being another pushover. Ooh. Yeah, this will be rough. Following his defeat, however, puts us in a frightening position as Quinn steals our partners from under our nose as well as our true identity. With this, we no longer have a means of striking a second time in a turn, and must venture back through the Twilight Trail, which proves challenging. It's not difficult to get one shot, or even just gradually whittled down if Crazy or Mazy Daisies are present, and we're not in much of a position to try our luck against them either. Eventually, we return to just before Twilight Town, where Quinn taunts us knowing we can't do anything to him without the critical letter needed to guess his true name. As you can see, he can bash me all he wants, and I'm helpless against him. I was bashed nearly to death by him before realizing that running away would be my only option, despite the lack of a P in it. So that's 2 times now we have to break our own rules. Shortly after, we meet Vivian and help her to not only come to terms with the fact that Beldum sinks, but to find purpose in helping me in any way she can. And I mean that when I say any way she can, because, and apologies to the... Hold on a sec. Okay, 8.6% of my audience who identifies with Vivian. She has absolutely no moves that are usable under my rule set at all. Nothing with a P, much like herself. She still ends up being necessary for progression after we escape from Quinn a second time and venture under Creepy Steeple. The badge Tornado Jump is also available here, and Style aside, I have no expectations on finding genuine use for this at all. We at least soon find the letter P and open Dupless up to the worst fear imaginable. Doxing him. Publicly.
Alright, right in front of your house. Come out. Come out and talk to me. He has food outside, so he should be out any minute now to pick it up. I just want to talk.
One pursuit up to the peak of Creepy Steeple later, and we're once more ready to confront the Fiend as well as my mutinous Malpals. And well, even when it's just Mario, the man can hop, and he hops them all into submission. It ends up being a battle where Mario does all the legwork while Vivian just kinda stands there and looks pretty. As if she's just a cheerleader like Merlian's Super Paper Mario. It doesn't take long before Dupla succumbs to us, and we reclaim our identity alongside our past partners. Chapter 4 may have been pretty barren as far as tools to use as we ventured through it, but I will appreciate being able to buy maple syrups freely now. What we take out of it though is bound to be great. Vivian, for example, gives a spike shield, making spiky enemies much less of a hassle to handle, which is great when you consider Pokies in this game earlier. The cookbook allows us to cook multiple items at once, which opens us up to much more potent items for healing now, like Maple Ultras, Jelly Supers, and Mushroom Crepes. That being said, it is not lost on me just how limited our options still are. We were unable to use Slow Shrooms, so our only choice if we want gradual HP is the Couple's Cake. On the bright side, we can also bring alongside us a new partner in Miss Mouse. She's actually the last partner with an attack we can use, and it's Love Slap. It's weaker than anything Flurry or Scrap has, but it pierces defense and is free and costing FP, which ironically makes her a decent pick if it ever gets low. It shouldn't ever actually be a problem, but that is how she stands now. Not much is keeping us from being able to get into Chapter 5, so we may as well take care of it. The enemies here largely are hazardous to tackle one way or another. Flurry, for example, can't hurt Embers with Lip Lock, nor can Miss Mouse with Love Slap. Mario's Super Hammer works fine though, and Scrap's Gulp is probably the fastest method available to beat them. Later on, we make our way to Bobbery, and his moves involve absolutely none with a P in them. So Miss Mouse is still the last usable partner we're given. Spelunking our way through the Pirate's Grotto eventually leads us to the Pirate King Cortex, who we duel for the last Crystal Star that we're unable to use. Leading with Miss Mouse, the fight devolves into jumps and love slaps until the first phase is beaten. Little did I know though that this would be where most of the damage I took would be. Once the first phase ends, phase 2 begins. And with Miss Mouse still by my side, we proceed to keep attacking, but special attention I want to give to the bone pile. If you attack it specifically, Cortez will change shape, and 2 attacks will have him expose a gem concealed in his spine. Attacking it will dish out 2 additional points of damage per hit, and we're able to strike him down before he can even attack. Finally, phase 3 appears, and I'm fully prepared to learn how to engage his swords, but the stage decides to get in on the action, and freezes him and his weapons solid. There's nothing left he can do after this, so I bring Flurry out and proceed to put him out of his misery. How anticlimactic. Not really defeating Cortez gives us the Sapphire Star, which despite having a P in it, the move Sweet Feast doesn't, and it makes the move unusable. But that should not be a surprise, as the magical map has a P, and we haven't been using Sweet Treat at all this whole challenge. It also just dawned on me following this event how thorough this game is with its hint system, and part of me wants to see now how thorough it really is. May play through the game again and consult it for every little thing just out of morbid curiosity. Let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. Now, for Lord Crump, it's Mario and Flurry once again taking stage right, and the fight is just spin jumps and lip locks. I do give Miss Mouse a chance to fight for the second half of phase 1, but once they're ran its course, it's back to Flurry, where we just keep attacking. With little difficulty, we're able to come out swinging and winning. Having partners that can more consistently fight now is making our time much less dreadful. And now that Bobbery is by our side, it's time to soup them up just that slight bit more. Wrecking up our partners gives more attack power and HP, with Flurry's reaching an impressive 35, while Lip Lock has 6 base attack now, just to give an example. Most new moves, however, aren't usable, with one exception. Scrap the Yoshi learned Stampede, a move that strikes all foes on screen, dealing 6 damage to enemies without defense. This is a strong move, but it's really only going to see use against 0 defense enemies, since there's nothing we have access to that can boost our attack. And it's highly unlikely we're going to be seeing it for most future boss fights by extension. I still wanted to test our ultra-ranked allies a bit, so I returned to the Pit of 100 Trials to seek out the same sack and double dip badges within. We're able to cruise through the early fight significantly more easily thanks to having Miss Mouse now, so FP really isn't as necessary until deeper in the pit. Spike's shield also serves to be a massive help for the various spiky enemies we find like Pokies, Spiky Parabuzzies, and Dark Lakitus, especially the latter with their Spinies. Honestly, the most dangerous enemies we encounter down here are probably Dry Bones. If you stumble upon a loadout with 4 and your FP is low, it may be time to call for the curtains to fall, as they repeatedly come back after the HP is 0. Fortunately, we have the Super Hammer and can just repeatedly damage the already fallen bones to prevent them from getting back up, while Flurry helps us to pick the later bones off. It really feels like every one of my partners has to pull their weight. Otherwise, Scrap Stampede would be carrying us the whole way through. After getting the 2 double dip badges, I was pondering delving deeper to try and snag Bump Attack, but the badge just isn't good. So I bowed out after level 70 and just got ready to board the XS Express. When I come back to the pit now, it'll be with the intent of completing it. Little ever happens here battle-wise. We complete some mysteries, assist some spirits, bust a duplicate ghost, and brawl with some buggers in Riverside Station. And while in the area, we get the PFD down badge, the one and only badge that can boost Mario's attack power directly, discounting Jumpman for only his jump, even if at the expense of taking additional damage. The Ultra Boots are also available here, granting Mario the spring jump attack and providing him even more attack power. Our kicks are pumped up and we're able to solve the remaining puzzles leading us to Smork atop the train. Since neither Mouse or Scrap have attacks that can target the miasmas at the beginning of the fight, it's up to Flurry to back Mario up now. Her lip lock is strong enough to take a miasma out in one blow, and she sets up for Mario to dish out the big damage after Smork is exposed. We were able to reduce it to below half during our opening, where we're then able to just batter it with Miss Mouse and Mario until it's exterminated. Fog did come in to slow us down, and way more than Smork itself was, but it was but a footnote in its fall. With 6 chapter bosses now behind us, we're prepared to hunt down the 6th Crystal Star, but not before picking up some fresh pasta. Unusable in its current state, but most recipes that involve it can be used. Between stuff like Zest Specials and Spicy Pasta, we can do a lot with these. Finally, following the Garnet Star appearing in our possession, the move Showstopper is now available to us. And folks, this is the first Crystal Star that we can actually use in battle. 6 chapters in. With it, we can now eliminate enemies in one shot, provided we're lucky. So, not very effective for bosses. Still, this can at least see some genuine use in the Pit of 100 Trials when we go back down it. And it isn't like I've been ignoring it for the many enemies we'll be encountering in the upcoming chapter. I also just want to request you look at the screen here to see this timestamp in case you don't want to be spoiled on some of the added content this game has to offer. 4, 3, 2, 1, you have been warned. Alright, so I actually got the email for Prince Mush requesting a fight with me just after completing Chapter 5, and decided to hold off on taking up his offer until at least getting the Ultra Boots and Hammer, since with his absurd defense, there was no shot I'd have at winning it if I went at him as is. Then the first attempt I gave him went about as you'd expect. I was doing alright damage with Miss Mouse at least, while Mario's Power Jump and Super Hammer at least were able to put a dent in him, largely thanks to PFD down. But the real damage doesn't come into play until I Super Guard Mush, where his defense drops to 0. However, once his HP got low enough... yeah. Far outpost enemies, as dangerous as they can be, Showstopper more often than not is an OKO, which is nice, because SP is something we can regularly restore through our audience. There is otherwise not much to do here, or on Earth for that matter, as our goal is to get the help of Goldbop and General White to reach the moon, which ultimately doesn't take too long thanks to the backtracking here being addressed in the remake. Once we do reach the moon, however, it's really just more enemies to Showstopper away, and several Ultra Shrooms, which I'm bound to put to good use later. The boss of this chapter, meanwhile, is actually pretty formidable. Magnus 2 has a fairly high 70 HP, backed by 2 defense, and the slew of strong attacks have become much more dangerous when you account for the lack of defense anyone in my party has. This isn't the kind of fight to try without at least some type of plan first, especially since Super Guarding here isn't something I'm exactly equipped to do, and my best partner, Scrap, can't actually do anything out the gate. What I opt for is to rely on Soft Stomp to buy up some time with no defense, so that Stampede can actually do something. This allows us to get more value out of its ability to hit airborne targets too, so that the X punches aren't able to stick around. However, to allow Mario to fight on with at least some partner for the whole fight, I aim to avoid triggering the audience cannon early, by only doing enough damage to just barely KO the punches, so that Crump doesn't think to activate it. Then on Scrap's turn, I bring out Flurry, as she's the only partner I have with the HP to survive the attack if I miss every shot as Mario keeps on the attack. And wouldn't you know it, I missed all 10 hits on it. If that had been Scrap or Miss Mouse, they would have been Gonris for sure. A Live Lock combined with Mario's spin jump from there is able to spell doom for Crump's mech and brings with it the final Crystal Star, aptly named the Crystal Star. It also gives us the move Supernova, which is the second special move we can use, and the final one we're given for the game. And Supernova, despite the devastating power it affords, it's actually not very good because of the cost super appeal. I'm gonna buy lots and lots of super appeals. Enough to say, fill a minimum of 6 units of star power every time Mario appeals. Hey, I gotta do something with the diarrhea dump of coins this game spouts onto me. Errands? Maybe I'll tell you about it later. So, a lot of bosses, and not much happening in between each one, so Dark Bones. For whatever reason, I don't even bother trying to attack or ride scrap to get to them, I just waffle through the crowd. After the fight started, I used Showstopper and won the fight in one turn. Showstopper really just wiped every one of the bones out. Right, nothing else to see here. Some minutes pass before we tussle with Gloomtail, and while traveling to him, we find the final badge of note in the game, P up D down P. The only badge in the entire game that can boost partner attack, period. You can expect this badge to be on pretty much permanently from now on. And now, we can actually look into Gloomtail. Correction? That'd be sisters.
Emotional damage!
Even with only moves with a P in them, there is very little that we really have to fear. Soft Stomp ended up seeing some use here as a means of allowing Spring Jump to do more damage, while Flurry is just content using Lip Lock. The rest of the fight goes as you'd expect. Our damage is just so high, we really don't have much to fear, even if we struggle with the Super Guard. I will say though, I admire the look of Gloomtail's Mega Breath. Looks like he's firing out a Hyper Beam. Went on to check out the crack in the wall after Gloomtail was defeated and found the gradual syrup. I then hiked out and up the Riddle Tower, realized I forgot to get the Star Stone from Gloomtail's room, and I returned to it to see that the crack in the wall I blew open reappeared, but the collision is still gone. Which is a very funny oversight. Finally, with this behind me, it's time to redo the fight with the 3... Actually, are we even sure that Dupless can be considered a shadow? I mean, I'm calling them the Shadow Sirens either way. Here is a fight where my strategy just involved brute force and not much else. I actually triggered an asteroid from using Spring Jump here on the first turn, then the Sirens strike and I get frozen by Beldum. Not good. Obviously I can't do anything while waiting to thaw, but I think here is where seeing how much HP Mario has is noteworthy. As much abuse as Mario took in the first 3 turns, he still has more than half of his max HP left. It honestly says a lot to how little we have to worry about death when FP and BP have already hit a point where leveling them up doesn't really offer anything of value anymore. We are already well past the point where increasing BP would have diminishing returns, and FP can easily be remedied with the many items I have, from Zest Specials to Gradual Syrups. Heck, not even HP really has much value to level up anymore, but we have to level up something. It's kinda sad how this late in the game, there are still moves I've yet to seriously use at all. Even some of the worst moves like String Stomp I paid a tiny amount of attention to. But then there's Tornado Jump, which I've just never bothered with for the whole game. And I'm bringing it up here because I planned on using it for Grotto's with his X's spawning, just to never end up actually using it. I actually sooner resorted to Stampede to wipe the Grotto's X's out before then attacking Grotto's with Soft Stomp to counter his defense when his X's would spawn. Now Stampede does damage to Grotto's just fine, and Mario's damage can be as strong as ever. I'm able to just repeat this process while trying and failing to Super Guard Grotto's attacks on me, healing with 1 Maple Super for my cornucopia of items. Needless to say, we're suited for success. But following Grotto's, not only did we not level up following his fall, but we now have to contend with Bowser immediately after, which would be a daunting encounter, but wouldn't you know it, I used the same strategy against them being Bowser and Kamekoopa, as I did with Grotto's. Soft Stomp Bowser, Stampede, you get the idea. But to be honest, this is only because trying to put Bowser's source of healing to sleep too early would not last. Yeah, following the first turn, I tried to use Sleepy Stomp again after it ended up being a bust for Hooktail. Cammy's susceptibility is actually pretty low at 40%, but I could not tell you that from experience. And once she was out of commission, it was just Bowser on as lonesome while I repeatedly bashed him with my slacks and stampedes. I don't actually know why I didn't just keep Scrap out the whole time though. I brought Miss Mouse in later, and the most she did was just get her moves disabled and feed Mario some syrup. Then I brought Scrap back in to gulp Bowser whole and finish him off before proceeding to then double team Kamekoopa into a pulp. And with no Bowser to serve as the muscle, Cammy does not need much to be brought back down to Earth and stay there. Even after healing, she's only one spin jump away from oblivion. To Bowser and Cammy's credit though, they did do decent damage overall. Soft Stomp though, man, this badge has actually been working superbly well as of late. Really happy with it because it does a lot to remedy my lack of power boosting options. And now, we've reached the end of the line. I swear, Flurry makes every cutscene so much funnier just by existing within it. With the Shadow Queen, the fight against her is known to be just downright daunting. And being able to attack 3 times in one turn, it's not hard to see how we can be put in an incredibly uncomfortable position if she targets Mario specifically. Still, our attacks do some clean and frankly effective damage. We were able to reduce her to below 90 HP through 2 spring jumps, 2 lip locks, and the Supernova. Survival afterwards becomes the name of the game, as we're just attacking while waiting for the fight to progress. And following the best cutscene in the game with one of the best pieces of music in the entire series, the true fun of battle sees its start. The fight begins with a spring jump and lip lock, just doing damage as I await the Shadow Queen's stronger attacks. Come the second turn, I attempt Sleepy Stomp and win. So, the Shadow Queen just never woke up until the status naturally expired. She really just did absolutely nothing for about 7 turns, as I just kept on assaulting her with jumps and stampedes, while mixing in some occasional FP games. And only eventually after waking up did she attack me again, with her Dark Pulse. To be fair, 15 damage is not a small number, but Gloomtail did more. It also probably doesn't help her much that I'm able to KO her afterwards effectively immediately thanks to Stampede and one final Supernova. Which, quite frankly, I don't really like how this fight ended. Really anticlimactic. But, well, we beat the game with only using resources with the letter P in them. So I'll thank my channel members, Splash Shade, Nintendo 60Jorts, and MB Switchy, and after that I guess I'll see y'all later for another video. Or maybe a part 2 for this one if you want to see it. I don't freaking know. But yeah, I'll see you later.